Well, this is an interesting one because my sister-in-law tried to absolutely sabotage my career because I beat her for the job. Hi, my name's Josh. I'm 40 and male. I'm engaged to a beautiful and loving woman who's 32. Her whole family is so sweet, and I get where she got all her charm from. They all love me except for my fiance's younger sister. I don't really know what her issue with me is, but I know that she totally despises me. Let me not make it about her because this is my story. My family is one of the wealthier families in our town, and they do whatever they feel like doing, whether it's wrong or right, and their biggest fear and weakness is their reputation. They never want to hear our family name in vain ever, or being portrayed in a messed up way. My father always wanted me to take over the family business when I'm older, but I told him I have bigger dreams, and I didn't want to be tied to the family chain or just running the firm and die doing it. I wanted to explore stuff, new things. I wanted to live a different life, but I never had the intrepidity to talk back at him because he was almost a heartless man who would do anything to keep the business going. He wanted the legacy to simply continue. Dad owned a ranch where we would always go with the family for the holidays, and it was fun while it lasted. Until one day when everything changed. I was 14 years old, and I did not know what I was capable of hurting a soul until that day. I'll not get into details as I've told the story a million times, but only in my head. I can't find the right time and words to explain what happened that day. Up to today, that memory haunts me, and I really want to tell Lorinda before we get married, as it might be the reason we divorce someday. Everyone's forgotten about it, but I can only try. It's painful to think about, truly. But I cannot seem to forget it, not even for a second. I think about it during the day, and I dream about it at night. I know how you feel drained by the mystery, but I'll talk about it someday, I suppose. I'll be getting married in 2 weeks' time, but I've not opened up to my fiancée to tell her about the incident. I already feel like a bad husband. My mother will kill me at any age if I tell anyone about it, because all that matters is the family. Sometimes I wish I was not born into my family. They have strict norms to be followed, and they're full of mystery. You find out about something weird every single day, I'm telling you the truth. My family is simply full of secrets, and it becomes awfully exhausting for one to learn something new about his or her family every single day. Oh well, this is the family I was born into, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's not that I hate my family, no, I just hate their lifestyle. After the incident, we had a long-lasting fight that went on for almost 2 years, and that's when I went to my own ways and be excluded out of the family wealth. Even though it was painful to leave at first, I was glad I was finally out of the bondage of my family and their stupid norms. And the only person I really missed was my mother. I thought of her every day, and I tried to sneak into the house just to see how she was doing. I was on my own. When I went to varsity, it was hard because my father had thrown me away and he refused to pay my tuition fees. But one day, I went to take part in a regional commercial quiz competition, and on that same day, I got a sponsor. I was so thankful. He did not only offer to pay my fees, but he offered accommodation and a paid internship. I could never be more appreciative to him, and that generous man turned out to be Lorinda and Sonia's father. He was like a father to me too, and then I met his oldest daughter. Immediately, he was like a father-in-law to me, LOL. Lorinda took my breath away. She's not only the walking definition of true beauty, but is also therapeutic just looking at her. Because she helped me get better, and when it came to me thinking about what I've done, some people listen to music for therapy. All I did was look into her beautiful face, and I'll soon be getting married to her. I just wish I could get the strength to tell her about it. It's going to be very hard, but I have to tell her if I really want to keep her by my side. My biggest fear is that she might not want to do anything with me after I tell her. Thinking about it, I'll have to keep it from her if it means keeping her by my side. I can't afford to lose a treasure like that just because I'm trying to be an honest man. I guess I'll hold on to this secret for longer than I thought. Well, I have to go now. I've invited my family, and I really don't know if they'll even show up, but I hope so. Even though I chose to stay away from them, I would still appreciate their presence at my wedding. It's going to be the best day of my life, and I would like for them to be there. I'm already struggling to put together this wedding as I don't really have money at the moment. Although Christopher has offered to handle everything. It's my wedding and I don't want to make a bad impression of myself. She would even start thinking that I only accepted to live with them for their money. I have respect for Christopher and I appreciate every little thing that he's done for me, but I want to do this for myself. Sometimes I ask myself why I'm even getting married, because I can't afford her at the moment, but the love I have for her is saying otherwise, and all I want to do is spend every night with her and wake up to her sweet face every single morning. Also, to convince her father that I'm serious about us, I have to put a ring on her finger. Well, I'll update you guys about how my wedding goes. Ciao! What's up everybody, Mr. Reddito here. So this story is a very unique timeline. Update number 1 did not come out for an entire year and a half. As you can imagine, quite a lot's happened in OP's life. Let's see exactly what's going down. Update number 1. I would not say my life has been entirely bad, but I've been through a lot lately. Well, firstly, my family decided to not show up for my wedding, and I must admit that it's not the nicest feeling at all. I can't believe that my father and mother missed my wedding as if it was just some sort of small occasion like a birthday party. It was my wedding, for goodness sakes. At least now I know where I stand in my family's lives, and I'll never step foot in that house again. After my wedding, I snuck away from the party and went home to ask them why they did not take part of my wedding. Just because you invited us does not mean that we're going to just show up like puppets. Our time's too valuable to waste on your shenanigans. I want you to leave my house now. You made your decision years ago, and I never want to see you in our house again. You become dead to me the day you left. I wasn't shocked by what he said, but I was furious with him for missing my wedding because of a misunderstanding that we had when I was a child. He was being unreasonable and childish. At least, if he did not want to attend my wedding, he should have allowed Mom and other family members to attend. All my siblings did not show up as well, and everyone at the wedding looked at me with pity as none of my family members came. How would anyone feel if they went through some situation like this? Anyways, I left their home and vowed to never step foot in that house. Since my siblings have also decided to follow Dad's footsteps and to cutting all ties with me, I'll not be bothered if I miss their important occasions as well. They've made me an outsider, and they clearly showed it to me when I went to ask them why they had not attended my wedding. I'm not going to feel pity for myself because they neglected me completely. I'll live my life without regret of ever leaving home. I've told my wife about what happened years ago, and she's not talked to me in months. When we go out, she pretends as if everything's okay. Then we come home and she goes straight to bed being mad. I don't blame her though. It was shocking for her to learn that her ideal husband's a criminal. 2 months ago, she came to me and said she wanted a divorce. I was shattered to hear that from her, and we just got married a year ago and she already wants to get divorced. That is exactly why I wanted to keep it from her. I do regret telling her now, as much as I regret doing what I did years ago. I tend to mess up everything that I come into contact with. I really don't know what to do. I love Lorinda, and I would never want to lose her. She's been my reason to live without going insane. I'm still haunted by regret and guilt, and if she leaves me, I will go crazy. What do you guys think I should do at this point? I obviously can't run back into my father's arms to cry to him, and even if I could, I wouldn't, because I know that he's capable of having Lorinda killed to protect the family secret. I don't know what's so special about them that they think they can just do anything they want and get away with it. Well, I've made my choice that I would never go back to my family, and nothing's going to make me change my mind about it. I know that my dad will feel victorious if I run back to him and ask him to help, and I'll not let that happen. Anyways, I've been trying to get a job for the longest time now. I love being my own man, and so I decided to leave father-in-law's company to find a job where I am not highly favored. This will help me a lot as I'll grow and learn a bit. I went for an interview last week and I received a call yesterday to inform me that, in fact, I got hired. I'm so excited for my new job, I can finally give the world to my darling wife. I just can't wait for my first paycheck to get here. I'll spend it all on her every dime. I was unable to give her the best wedding, but I'll make it up to her now. now that I found a good paying job. She's still not talked to me, but I know that she'll definitely talk to me when I give her the good news. I can't wait to see the look on her face. I miss seeing her pretty smile. And the fact that we sleep in separate rooms now, it just hurts me. I feel like she really is serious about this divorce. What would I do without her by my side? I honestly don't know how I would live without her by me. I feel like my job's mostly the only good thing about what's happened in the past 1.5 years. I wasn't really in a good place. I just needed to work hard this month so I can spoil her. She needs to know how much I love her, and what will happen was just an accident. I really wouldn't do what I did if I was in my right consciousness. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I have to find a way before she decides to make it formal and leave me for good. I don't want to sound like a desperate man, but I long for her love every day. Even the biggest and most dangerous beast deserves to be loved, right? So, can't I just get loved for who I am? I did one wrong thing in my life, and now I have to pay for it dearly. I've already been punished for it in jail, then my family decides to forget about me, and now my wife is not talking to me and she's seriously considering divorce. Sometimes I feel like I'm cursed. I just hope that she does not divorce me and work out this issue and get back to our beautiful love. Well, I'll update you guys soon. Update number 2, 6 months later. Hey guys, it's been 6 months since my last post, and I must say that I'm on the verge of exploding. I have my sister-in-law on my neck, and on the other hand, there's an anonymous person threatening me. Let's start with Sonia. It turns out she also studied the same course I did, and I had no idea that we were competing against each other for this auditing job. I'm grateful that I got it, which also just shows that I'm way better than her. I don't even get why she does not want to join her father's company. Christopher's the nicest man I know, so I don't get what issues she has with her father. I always forget that it's Sonia I'm talking about. She has issues with everyone, and she hates everyone as well. Well, she's been breathing down my neck recently, calling me names and anything imaginable. She says I've taken her job and she'll do anything in her power to make that post open again. I wasn't bothered by her threats, but it gets worse every day, and I'm starting to believe that it's actually true. She's tried to cut the brakes of my car, and I was almost in a horrible accident. I know it was her because she did not seem worried when I was in the hospital that day. I left the office late because I had a lot to do. As I walked out of the office, I heard some weird sounds coming from the parking lot. I stood quietly and looked around as nobody was there. I walked towards my car and a person ran away from behind the car. I ran after him to try to stop him, but he got away. It didn't cross my mind that he was actually doing something like, cutting my brakes. I assumed it was just some hungry thief. I drove out of the parking lot, and at the intersection where I'm supposed to jump on the road, the car wouldn't stop. I could not believe that my life would just end in a blink of an eye like this. I had no choice but to let everything happen. I was freaking out and had no idea what to do. The driver who was passing by saw that something was wrong and he shouted at me, "Let go of the acceleration pedal." Immediately, I let go and the car moved slower and slower until it crossed the whole street and hit the pavement. I wasn't hurt, although I hit my head on the steering wheel pretty hard. People gathered around my vehicle as I struggled to pull myself out of it. An ambulance came by and took me to the hospital for a normal checkup. Lorinda showed up at the hospital immediately after she heard about my accident. I knew that even if she didn't want to talk about me, she still loves me as much as I love her. She ran into my arms and started shedding tears, and that was the day everything changed between us. She was mad at me, but the thought of her losing me was way more painful, I guess. I couldn't thank Sonia enough for it, because if it wasn't for her, I would still be leaving home without a kiss goodbye from my loved one. The investigations are still ongoing about who attempted to kill me. It looks like Sonia was very smart and made sure to cover all the tracks well, but I know the truth will come out no matter what. Earlier, I mentioned the anonymous person threatening me. Well, this guy has been using me as his job, and I don't know how he found out about my juvenile case, but he's using it against me. I don't get how the whole universe is mad at me for getting a good job. He threatened to expose my family and I for stealing my case and dropping all investigations. For the past 3 months, I've been transferring a portion of 35% of my monthly salary. I don't know what to do. I can't involve the police, as the public will find out that my dad, well, he'll kill me then. I know I said I don't give a darn about what my family thinks about me, but if this goes public, my father will literally kill me. And possibly my wife as well. So I'm trying to deal with all this alone. I was supposed to have learned a lesson from my wife not talking to me for over a year, but I can't afford to endanger her life. I'll deal with this on my own, and I've been trying to figure out what person it is, but it's harder than I thought. I regret ever saying that I would never run back to Dad for help. I feel like I'm running out of options. I've hired someone to track down every time he sends a message or calls, but we keep failing. I hired a private investigator, but still, nothing. I don't know who could possibly be doing this to me. It's draining. I keep lying to my wife, even when it's so obvious that I'm hiding something from her. When I find out who it is, I'll make sure that they'll never forget me ever again. I'll make their lives a living heck. That's a promise. My father-in-law's worried about me. He keeps calling me and asking me if I need money. I've become my own man now, and I cannot accept anything that he's trying to give me. Now that I don't want it, or that I'm drawing away from him, I just want to be self-reliable and just do my own thing without feeling like I owe something to somebody. And I just hope that he'll soon understand and stop insisting on helping me out financially. I'll update you guys soon about this anonymous person. Update number 3. A year later. I finally found out who was behind the anonymous threats. It's always been Sonia. That piece of crap, who does she think she is? One day she came into my office to ruin my day. We got into an argument as usual, and she said something that got to me, wondering what she meant. She said this: "I really don't care if you have this job, because you get to work for both of us." I kept overthinking and trying to understand what she meant by that. I later realized what she meant. She said I worked for the both of us, which could only mean that I get paid for the both of us. I couldn't control my anger when I realized exactly what she meant. I went to confront her, and she had the nerves to laugh in my face and admit it with no shame at all. So I punched her in the face a couple times before I came back to my senses. She was laying on the ground in a pool of blood. I started freaking out, and I called Lorinda. I could not continue lying to her anymore, as the truth was going to come out anyways. Lorinda came fast, and she was shocked to see her sister in a pool of her own blood. She looked at me with confusion and rage and asked, "Did you do this to my sister?" I nodded with shame and fear, and she later asked me why I've done it. I explained to her as tears rolled down my cheeks. After the explanation, she stood next to me and said this: "Stop acting weak, honey. You only did what you had to do. She went too far with her stupid games. Not everything is about her. I know she's my sister, but she deserved what came to her." And then Lorinda hugged me. I felt so lost that I could not stand myself. I cannot explain exactly what I was feeling because it was a mixture of bad emotions. As I speak, I've made another enemy because of beating Sonia. As much as I regret beating her, I'm also glad that I did it, to put her in her place. Christopher now despises me for going rogue on his daughter, but she pushed me too far. I wanted to open up to him, but Lorinda stopped me and said that he would only use it against me and expose my family and I to the public eyes. Well, our families are now at war as they want us to get divorced. I have no idea how Dad found out about the anonymous threats, but I know that it did not make him happy at all. He wasn't bothered by the fact that I have to give away a portion of my salary, no, but he was bothered by the fact that the truth was almost revealed. All he did was lecture me about how careless I am, but I must say that he has also seemed to be glad to see me in one piece, even though he didn't admit it. Life has a funny way of reuniting families, don't you think? My dad thought it would be a good way to keep an eye on me if I went back home, but My wife was not allowed to enter our house as they believe that she's a spy sent by her father. They also started believing that she's the one who told her sister the truth. I only stayed at the house for a few days and my father lectured me every single day. It was like a poem that he revised, but it was so exhausting and annoying. I could not stay away from my wife, and so we decided to run away from our families and just give life a new look. Just the two of us. But I know that Sonia will never let it rest until she gets me back for putting her in her place. Well, we bought a new house in town about 50 kilometers away from home, but I always went back to work as I couldn't afford to lose my job. It was our only source of income. Christopher has no fault in any of this drama going on between our families. He's just a caring father who's trying to protect his daughter. Little does he know that his daughter is one heck of a silent killer. But oh well, he'll soon find it out, and it'll very much kill him. I'll be back with updates, friends. I have to go now. Hey, what's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. Fourth and final update. 2 weeks later, here it is. Hey guys, I know it's been only 2 weeks since my last post, and I must say that things seem to be falling into places. I finally won my father-in-law's love and trust again, all thanks to my wife. Last week when I came to work, Sonia came to my office and caused quite the scene. She threatened me and said she was going to expose us in less than 2 weeks. If I wanted her to stop, I had to apparently go live on social media and apologize for assaulting her. I couldn't do that, as all I did was defend myself, and if I had to record the video, I would have lost my job. I can't do that at any cost. Either way, I was going to lose my job if she had exposed me, but I guess everyone has their secrets. I went home that day and told my wife about how our lives were going to end. I had no idea that she knew her sister's secret. Lorinda looked at me and said, "Our lives are not going to end like this. I'll be back soon." She went outside, and as she went to make a phone call, she did not trust her sister, and, well, she knew that it was going to go down since that she had prepared to fight back. She hired a private investigator to keep an eye on her sister, and it turns out that her sister was not only getting money from me, but she was also stealing money from her father's company through the company's accountant to make a life for her broke boyfriend. Who would have thought that she's also brainless? I cannot believe that she thought a life with an ex-con was possible. She used the accountant and made him do all her dirty work, and that explained why she never wanted to be a part of her father's company, because it would be very suspicious. Anyways, Lorinda made a call to her father and told him everything her sister had done. She later sent the investigator to send proof. Y'all should have seen Sonia's face. Her father was disappointed that he did not hesitate to get his daughter arrested. He wanted to teach her a valuable lesson, and he thought that prison is the only place to correct her. After all, prison's a correctional facility. LOL. Maybe it's time I told you what happened a few years ago, right? Here it is. My older brother Victor was a sports coach at my school. He was coaching the girls' football, and one of my childhood friends, Maddie, did not know what extracurricular activity to join, because she was all alone as my whole group of friends included me. We had all something to do after school, so I told her to try out football. She followed my advice, and she was getting good at it, and she was liking it as well. My brothers and I would always compete, and he wanted to show me that he's the bigger man, so he decided to hit on Maddie. He told her all the nice things that a young innocent teenager wanted to hear, and as stupid as she was, she believed him. Every single word. He later got her pregnant and told her to stay away from him. He even kicked her off the team. Maddie was devastated, and she did not know what to do. She couldn't even open up to us about it, although we could clearly see that something was wrong with her. I decided to host a party at my father's ranch. All my friends came, and we were having a blast. We all decided to go for a boat ride. We were all high on drugs and alcohol, as my father had paid the cops to never take me in if I host a party with alcohol. I was given permission to do whatever I wanted. Maddie was acting weird. Little did I know that she was planning on recording a video to upload it online about how my brother forcefully slept with her. She was telling the truth, except for the part where she said it was by force. I caught her doing it and we started fighting over the phone. She struggled and was heated and she fell off the boat. I had no idea that she couldn't swim or of the friends saw her and screamed. We all laughed thinking she was just pulling our legs until we noticed that she was actually not pretending. So we all screamed and went to pull her out of the water just to see. She was already gone. All I was doing was saving my brother's butt, but I have to pay for doing it. He's the one who took advantage of a minor and I had to clean up his dirty mess. He could not let Dad know because he knew that Dad was going to be oh so disappointed. In the end, it was not worth it because the truth came out in a much more dramatic way. I took the blame, all alone. I didn't even tell Dad that Victor was the cause of what happened. I took every single ounce of blame and it's haunted me for years. I was taken to prison for a year and I became a free man, and that's when I decided to never step foot in my father's house again. I had to take all the blame of a grown man who only wanted to make his father proud. Well, that's when Sonia found a way to threaten me because she found my juvenile record and police office. She then manipulated him into helping her with the threats. They even shared the money from my salary, pieces of crap. At least justice is now served and Sonia's exactly where she belongs. I think that's about it on my life. Quick question though. Am I the a-hole for always hiding things from everybody? So this story was just full of disasters left and right. I would say I felt sorry for OP in some parts of this story, but let's be real, he wasn't the best of a human. He was hitting a girl, beat her up, left her bloody on the floor. I mean, that's just not right. Let me know your thoughts though, guys. My official vote for this story is everyone sucks here, and everyone's the a-hole. I do want to know your thoughts about it though. We could break it down into more details, but this story was so much to cover. Let's talk about it in the comment section, guys. So get this. My fiance's father. My fiance is named Nick, and well, his father is saying that we are not meant to be. I'm not good enough for him. Well, guess what? Nick then goes on to break my little heart, and listens to his father and breaks up with me. Guys, I wish you could have seen the look on his face once his father realized exactly who my father was, and man, he looks so stupid. I would need to start my story right from the beginning so you could understand how lucky I feel. I'm the last daughter and child of my parents. I have two elder sisters who are already married. My mother's a nurse while my father's a retired fireman. He retired pretty early due to injuries sustained at work, and when you say someone's committed to his job, you would basically be talking about my father. Rather than several medals which my father deserved from the New Haven community citizens, he had lots of scars on his body. He was a greatly loved man by everybody. Well, as a result of who my father was, we regularly enjoyed favors as a family and as individuals. It was really nice to be associated with my father as his daughter, who would not welcome the idea of having a father who was seen as a community hero. I mean, come on. Remember I said my dad retired early, right? This was because of an incident that occurred some 15 years ago. I remember vividly because it occurred on the day of my 9th birthday celebration. We were all at home and in the evening expecting my father's return from work, as we did not want to start the party without him. But rather than having him back, we got a call from one of his colleagues that asked my mother to rush down to the hospital. So my mom left the trio of my sister and me at home as she rushed out of the house. As kids who were known to be curious, we wanted to know where she was heading to and why my birthday was suddenly not so important anymore. But my mother simply told my eldest sister to look after us and that she would be back soon. Well, my mother did not keep her word as she did not come back that night. My sister and I stayed up most of the night waiting for our parents to return home so my party could go and get started, but hey, they never showed up. I slept in my birthday dress. We were still wondering where our parents were the next morning when my mother's sister who lived in the neighborhood came to check up on us. She informed us that Mom sent us. We asked her where our mother went, and she just said our mom was busy but she would be back home soon. We became restless. We refused to eat the meals she prepared, and before she knew what was happening, we began wailing like kids who had lost their parents. We just knew something was wrong. It was the midst of the whole commotion that my aunt called our mom, explained to her the situation of things, and my mother spoke with us over the phone, reassuring us that everything was fine. Even though we'd spoken to our mother, there was this uneasy feeling that we could not shake off. We had informed our mom that our father was yet to come back home since yesterday, and she simply said that all was good. She claimed that she had spoken with our father before calling us, and he was held down by some work. My mom, however, did not tell us when either she or Dad would be coming home. It took 3 days. 3 days before we laid eyes on Mom, and she came home to pick up some clothing, and we observed that most of the clothing she was taking was Dad's. The moment my mother got home, visitors and sympathizers began strolling by. Some brought already cooked meals, while others gave our mother monetary gifts. The whole thing made us ask questions. Why were we receiving visitors like something's bad happened? Why were they bringing gifts to sympathize with us? One surprise in all this was the fact that each time these visitors came around, my mother would ask her sister who had been staying with us to take us to the room. She did not want us to hear what was being discussed with the guest. We would hear her burst into tears at several points in time, and before my mother left with my father's belongings, she called my sisters and me and asked that we behaved very well, as though she and our father were around. We still repeated the question of our father's whereabouts, and she said that she would return with him just a few days' time. There was nothing we could do. We could not force her to tell us the truth that she was hiding because we suspected something was fishy. We accepted to conduct ourselves in an orderly manner while she was away. Ever since the whole saga, we had not been going to school. Our aunt had stopped us from going till our mother came home. When our mother returned to wherever she came from, we were then allowed to resume. The first day we resumed school, it was something else. Everyone looked at us like we had seen a ghost. The whole thing just felt off. Our teachers were super nice to us, and it was worrying, because we had not done anything to deserve the kind gestures that they were showing. I met with my direct elder sister during recess that day. I complained to her about how everybody was just acting super cool towards me for no reason. To my surprise, she said the same thing was experiencing with her. We were contemplating going to meet with our eldest sister, who we saw her running towards us at that moment. She informed us that one of her classmates had directly come to sympathize with her about what happened to our father. We were shocked, but it made sense. Our father was in some kind of trouble, and that was why we had not seen him or spoken to him for days. We could not wait for school to dismiss that day, because the moment we got home, we asked our aunt what happened to our dad. The way the question came, she could not lie to us anymore. That doesn't mean she told us the truth, though, not the whole truth. She said that our father had been involved in an accident on the day when I was supposed to celebrate my birthday, and my mother had been with him in the hospital ever since. She tried assuring us that our father was okay, but her assurance meant little to us. We began to cry and demand to be taken to our parents. It did not take long for our aunt to discover that she could not handle this. She had no other option than to call Mother and tell her what we know. Our mother spoke with us and told us our father was doing great, actually. And that was not a lie. We spoke with him. Hearing his voice was the assurance that we needed, and he promised us that he would be back home soon. We waited in anticipation for his return, and our father was finally discharged from the hospital, and it turned out that we were not the only ones who were waiting for his arrival. The whole community was even more anxious to receive him, and I will never forget the day that he came home. My sister and I discovered that our aunt had hidden the severity of the situation from us. We saw our father, whom we knew to be strong and agile. He was limping. He'd suffered several degrees of burns on his hand. Everyone began praising him the moment he alighted from the vehicle that conveyed him home. The actual story of what went down that night is that my father's department had received a distress call from a store that was in flames. The store was a story building, and most customers were stranded inside. My father and his team had gotten there, and while they did the whole evacuation thing, they discovered there was a little boy. He was stuck at the top floor. Without giving much of a thought to it, he went back inside for that boy. It was while my father was trying to evacuate the boy from the top floor using the rope technique method that he broke his leg. The rope had cut while my dad was making the descent, and my father's department made an inquiry as to who was responsible for checking this equipment that they used, and it turned out that it was one of my father's colleagues, Mr. Pope. My father knew it meant that his colleague would be dismissed and could even be sued for negligence. My father took the fall. Pops told his supervisors that it was he, not Mr. Pope, who was responsible for checking the instruments. He reasoned that since he was not going to be able to be a fireman anymore, he could just save Mr. Pope's job. The father of the boy who my father saved, by the way, he paid for every bit of my father's expenses, but my dad could no longer work as what he wanted, his dream of fireman, so he got into retirement pretty early. This did not mean we suffered. I mean, we were not super rich, but I can't remember a time since after the fire accident when we had to borrow or be hungry. This is 15 years now, and my father, through a single heroic deed, has been influential in the community, and you must not understand my reason for starting my story from where I did, but just hang on. It will all make sense very soon. I rounded up my college education 2 years ago, and I've been teaching in one of the elementary schools in our community. The pay was not much, but I felt satisfied doing it. My parents' modest lifestyle robbed me, and my sister are both married, as most of my friends are, and they would often ask me when I would be walking down the aisle. Marriage has never been an issue to me, but I met the love of my life last year when I went to visit a friend in a different part of the city. His name's Nick. He's a senior sales officer at a large tech firm, and I can say he is my kind of man. Nick and I have been dating for a while now. He recently surprised me with an engagement party. He did this after I had introduced him to a little circle of friends. The party was extravagant, and I would not have supported it if it was my opinion was sought beforehand. As expected, I said yes when he got on a knee and asked me to be his wife. It was after that I had said yes to his proposal that it dawned on me that I had not done much digging about his family background. Neither was he concerned about mine, and I only knew his parents were rich, retired folks who ran several chains of businesses. Nick took me to see his family, and I could say they were receptive to me, though I felt an air of displeasure in the atmosphere. Nick began pushing to meet with my parents, and I decided to tell my parents about him before having him come around. Something interesting happened the moment I sat with my parent, and as soon as I mentioned Nick's surname, my father began giving an avid description of his father. Well, I was shocked. It was very clear that was someone my father must have known in the past. I was not prepared for what my father said next. He noted that Nick was the son of Mr. Pope, who was somewhat, or wholly, responsible for the life injury he was carrying. It turned out Mr. Pope quit the fire service work the moment his older brother passed. His parent handed over the family business to him, and he spent years building the empire, and is currently thinking of running for political office. Hearing that my fiancé's father was indebted to my dad in a sense gave me confidence that he would be more friendly to me when he found out who my father was. I decided I would not tell my fiancé about it, though. Nick finally met my parents, and they warmly welcomed him. My dad kept the saga that had occurred between him and Nick's father. Nick would be touched by my father's physical condition. Little did he know that it was his dad that was the cause of this. Nick would be turning 25 in 2 weeks, and I'm organizing a party. I plan on having our both parents present, as the whole thing would be absolutely epic. I'd be getting to visit Nick's parents to seek their opinion about how I can make the party something Nick would never forget. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're having a great day. There's a few updates to hop into, so we're going to jump into update number 1, and things are probably not going to go as you thought, because this update has a twist. If you guys are new to the channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button for daily videos, and here's your update. I finally get why I had felt an air of uneasiness when I met with my in-laws for the first time. I'd been trying to see how I could organize a party for my fiancé who's their son, and I went to seek their opinion on the kind of things he would appreciate. I got to the house and my father-in-law-to-be was around with his wife. I began trying to establish a conversation between them, and though they gave me their opinions of things which I could feature in the party, I could tell their minds were set on other things. Nick's parents suggested that I did things that would require quite some money. Yeah, I forgot to mention that I was throwing the party with my own money, and the fact that I was an elementary teacher meant I did not have that much to spend. Besides, a life of moderation is something I had come to embrace, so I found it difficult trying to incorporate their suggestions. I just wanted the party to be something small, something that would involve the two families alone and maybe some important friends in Nick's life, but Nick's parents suggested I accommodated a huge number. And well, after listening to their suggestion, I decided I would give it some thought, and I thanked my in-laws for their warm welcome, and was about to take my leave when they demanded I stayed back, as there was something else they needed to discuss. At first, I was glad my in-laws wanted to bond some more, but I soon discovered it was the direct opposite. Nick's father began by appreciating the fact that I was a nice person with a wonderful personality. Though he was singing my praise, it meant little to me because I am no kid. I knew that praise singing is usually what you do before you give somebody a piece of disappointing news. So I braced up. After he was done exalting me, he went on to say that he did not think I was the person most suited for their son. I tried to understand what he meant by me not being suited for his son. I knew I had done nothing wrong. I mean, they would have said so if I did, and not wasted time beating about the bush. I could say so far that I had not given them any reason to feel like Nick and I were incompatible. I calmly asked them to explain deeper, but Nick's father just said that they were not okay with the whole thing going on between me and Nick. He demanded I put an end to it. I was hurt by the demand which was being thrown at me. I asked them what Nick's opinion was on the matter, and they said his opinion would not differ from theirs in any sort of way. I could not just meet their demand of breaking up with their son without hearing it directly from his face, so I simply said that I needed to speak with Nick first. Even if he was in support of the whole breakup thing, he needed to look me in the eye and say it right to my face, Nick. Would you believe it if I said that Mr. Pope offered me money? Money to leave my son. Well, that is just what he did. He asked me to name a price, and I initially felt he was just pulling my leg, to maybe test my loyalty or something, but it turned out that he was dead serious. He brought out a signed check and asked me to write a figure. I felt disgusted at the fact that they were maybe seeing me as some sort of gold digger. Well, I showed them that I was not. I turned down the money and respectfully took my leave. Update number 2. I've finally broken up with Nick. Well, technically speaking, he broke up with me, I guess. After I left his parents' house that day, I did something serious thinking about what I should do. I did not believe Nick was in support of our breakup because I was sure he loved me to the moon and back. I decided I would speak with him, and if he was willing to hold on to what we shared, then I would not let go. Besides, I was optimistic at the fact that if his parents were to meet with mine, then they would bond very well, and the whole, quote, "You're not the one best suited for our son" nonsense would just be tossed aside. I called Nick and we met up at a coffee shop. From the look of things, I suspected he was ignorant about the whole ordeal. I mean, he was still enthusiastic and positive about the whole marriage thing. I just explained to him that what had transpired between his parents and me, and he was distraught. I pleaded with him, though, to not go creating problems. I gave the excuse that they were probably looking out for their son, something which most parents would do, and Nick assured me that nothing would separate us, and he said all we needed to do was hold on to each other till his parents see that they could not influence us. My confidence level rose after my discussion with Nick. I went on to plan the party, and I equally involved my parents. The day finally came, and it was a nice atmosphere. My prediction about Nick's parents bonding with mine was absolutely spot on. The moment Mr. Pope set eyes on my father, they locked themselves up in a strong embrace. I was glad, though taken aback, as Mr. Pope did not come across to me as someone emotional. He was surprised to see my father in his house, as if it had been years since they had seen or heard from each other. He was more surprised to learn that the man who saved his butt years ago was in fact my father. In the midst of all that was going on, I discovered that Nick was nowhere to be seen. I went looking for him, as I wanted him to see for himself how our parents were catching up with each other. And I found him seated in his room, lost in thought. I did not want to say a word. I just attempted to pull him to his feet so that he could come to see himself, but he stopped me. He claimed that there was something he needed us to discuss. I did not think anything else could be more important than what I wanted to show him at the moment, but I decided to first listen to him, as his demeanor was really sad. Nick began to say that he was in love with me and that we had to say what was not going to be easy. I could tell that his parents had gotten to him. He went on to say, well, we had to break up. He just said it like it was nothing, and I just stood there looking at the guy who had told me a few days back that we needed to hold on to each other. Nick went on to say that his father, who recently delved into politics and was particular about who Nick ended up marrying, gave him a dirty slap, and I walked out of the house. I did not create a scene, though. Update number 3. I stayed at my friend's place for a while, and I had left the party, and I just don't know how the party ended. I switched off my phone as I knew my parents would be trying to reach me. I didn't want any disturbance from anyone. I was already bad enough that I had news about my breakup traveling like wildfire. After spending a few days at my friend's place, I decided to go back home. I knew I could not hide the breakup from my parents forever, and my parents were shocked and happy to see me at the same time. It was like they'd received their dead daughter back from the dead. They were asking me lots of questions that I was simply just not ready to answer. They went ahead to tell me that my ex-fiancé Nick had been looking for me. I did not take the whole thing seriously. I explained to them that Nick and I were done with our relationship, and there's no hope of marriage happening between us. My parents disagreed. They told me Nick had explained to them what happened and he was willing to patch things up, and I got angry hearing that Nick wanted to patch things up with me. I was still in the process of dealing with the pain and resentment which I felt when Nick showed up at our house 3 days later. My parents had informed him that I was around, and they'd been trying to convince him to pick up his phone call and make up with him. Nick began apologizing while at the same time claiming his father had gotten a change of heart after he learned she was the daughter of the man who saved his life, well, a long time ago. I still listened to his apology when he noted his father, who, had led him to the breakup with him, was now mounting pressure on him to make up with me, as it was equally helping his image since my father was a well-respected and influential person in the community. Well, I just did not know what to make of the whole thing. Did Nick want to get back to me because he loved me, or because his father was now mounting pressure for him to do so? Last I checked, a relationship was supposed to be between 2, not 3. I still loved Nick, but I would not just let this whole thing slide easily. I made up my mind to get revenge in my way, and I told Nick that I needed time to heal and think things over. I just asked him to give me a few days just to think about stuff, and Nick did not even let me rest. He began calling and texting, and he even sent flowers to me like he was trying to woo me afresh. He acted like he was still love-struck, and I guess he was. But I needed to make him suffer a little bit for not being man enough to stand by me when it mattered. Nick came to check up on me today. I knew he'd be coming around, and so I purposely went on a date. He was still at home when I was dropped off by my date, and I could see jealousy flooding his face. I went on to tell him that I was not sure we were meant for each other, and that it would be best if he just dropped the trying and just stopped it. Well, Nick felt terrible. I could see it. I do hope he still presses further. Update number 4. I never saw my scheme going as far as it did, and it paid off. After I lied to Nick that I was seeing somebody and felt it was best we stayed apart from each other, I get a text from somebody I never expected. His father. He was inviting me over to his house to have dinner with his family, and I knew he was just trying to get me and Nick back together, and though I wanted that, I declined. I was not done playing hard. Nick's father showed the level of desperation a few days later, as he and Nick were both driven down to our home. It was on a weekend, and I was taking a nap when my mother interrupted it. I knew it had to be something to do with Nick, and I still felt sleepy, but the sleep instantly vanished the moment she said Mr. Pope needs to see me. I got that sitting room, where he was already discussing with my father. Nick was looking rather sad, but his father just chit-chatted away with Pops like there's no issue, and Nick's father extended his arms towards me as an invitation for an embrace. He was trying to act drama. I did not want to seem impolite, so heck, I obliged. The moment he had his arms around me, he noted that he had come to see why his daughter-in-law had been avoiding his family for a while. I was keeping a long face as I needed to play the victim, but I swear I fought hard to contain a smile. He was already calling me his daughter-in-law. I looked at my parents, and they were all smiles, ear to ear, grins all around. Mr. Pope had gotten to them. I kept quiet and said nothing while my father-in-law continued to talk. He mentioned that I was understandably upset at the way things had turned out between us the last time we met and spoke. Well, he claimed that he never expected me to take it as far as I did, and I was waiting for the part where he would offer his apology and I would just have my pride and ego stroked a bit, but he diverted the responsibility to his son with his next statement. I'm still trying to figure out what my son was thinking when he demanded you guys break up. He said as though he was not the one who had engineered everything, and parents would always find a way to not be at fault, and he shot Nick a look as though he expected him, now's the time to make the move. Well, I guess you could say Nick picked up on the clue. He got to his knees and began begging for an apology for breaking up with me, telling me how sorry he was. I did not want to act like I was dying to make up with him, so I still acted tough. I noted that he had shamed me in front of friends by calling off our engagement, and Mr. Pope immediately insisted that Nick would host a party in the honor, where he would apologize for humiliating me in front of everybody. I did not want to push the matter further. I could not risk saying no, and then having Nick change his mind. Heck, I do still love him. To cut my update short, we're back together and preparations for our wedding are underway. I guess my next updates will come as a married woman. Update number 5. This is the final update in the saga. Just like I noted during my last update, I'm now a married woman. Everything happened so fast. My father-in-law, Mr. Pope, made it so as he did not want to risk any chance of having me change my mind. I did not get the party which I was promised, though. I stopped him from organizing it. I did not think it was necessary. I was satisfied with the fact that the marriage was going on after everything that happened. The day of my wedding was all glitz and glamour, courtesy of my father-in-law. It was extravagant. He did his best to ensure that I had little to do with the wedding planning. It was a wedding fit for a queen, and he covered every bit of the cost. The wedding witnessed different dignitaries from all over, from top politicians down to the community folk, who had always been supportive of my dad. The event was covered by a local, popular TV station. The major reason for this update, though, is not to bore you with the fact that I had the wedding of the, century. Far from that. I'm to the point of the fact that the parents would always find a way to blame their kids for their mistakes. My father-in-law is the prime example. The wedding ceremony was over, and the reception immediately took place. I'd stopped the pre-wedding party, which was supposed to be held to appease me, but that did not stop Mr. Pope from going ahead to do what he did. He called the attention of everybody there, somewhere along the lines, and began to give a speech about he and my dad, how we went back over 15 years. He painted the picture of two best friends who would stick their neck out for each other, and I looked at my father's face to see his reaction to his in-laws' exaggeration, and he just smiled. He obviously would not stand up to, deny his in-laws' claims. The climax of the whole thing was when my father-in-law went ahead to sing my praise. He called me a jewel, and noted that he was shocked when his son informed him that he had broken up with me, and he claimed he had to walk over and knock some sort of sense into old Nick, just to make him realize that my type was rare to find. I was amused at the fact that he reaped the blame on Nick, but it made me happy that he sang my praise. He gave a toast to me for accepting his son, and the whole place erupted in applause, and I'm happily married now, and my father-in-law's gotten his public image boosted. Thank you for listening to my, drama. Alright guys, so I'll just let you know, the comment section of this one was bonkers. Half of the people were so upset with OP for taking him back and going back with this guy, even though it seems like he's a complete floor mat and does whatever his father tells him to. But there were other people that were saying, hey, it's very clear that OP loves this guy. She loves Nick. So it doesn't really hurt that they got back together, since Nick and OP were not the ones who initially messed up the relationship, it was the father. So let me know, if you were in this weird situation that's not very common, what do you do? I'm 16 years old and male. I have a 4-month-old daughter, and my ex-girlfriend and me, we're not seeing eye to eye. She wants to leave, go away to college, and leave me with our kid. And I decided to tell my dad about it, and he had this to say. My parents divorced when I was 10, but lived primarily with my mom. Tiffany's parents are together. When our parents found out she was pregnant at 16, her parents kicked her out, and my mom kicked me out. So now we live with my father. During the pregnancy, my dad took my mom to court and got primary sole custody. I know what this means because I had to go to court for my daughter. He sued Tiffany's parents for legal guardianship, and they now pay child support for her, and they're extremely mad and refuse to talk to us. I'm in my bedroom, and my daughter is in her bedroom, and my ex is in the guest room. That is now hers. My dad made a deal with us. We live with him until 18 with no rent payment at 18, and we need to decide what it is we do. I wasn't really that good in school, and Tiffany is an A+ student. So I took my GED, and my dad got me into welding school. I finish in 2 months, and I also work full-time, so I do welding school at night. Tiffany goes to school and works on weekends at Wendy's. This whole thing is a huge ordeal. We literally have no life. My dad helps, but not that much because he feels it's our responsibility, which I agree, but still sucks. I work 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. at a warehouse and go to school from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Tiffany is home by 2:30 and picks up her daughter from daycare. We help each other a lot, and then I head off to school, and she stays with her at home until I get home and do it all over again the next day. When our daughter was born, my dad made us go to court, and we have 50-50. I don't pay child support because she lives with us. Because I work full-time, I can get health care for my daughter and myself, and that sucks that it costs me $300 a month. And well, daycare is like $400 a week. So literally, Tiffany just works so we can pay for daycare, and I pay for everything else. When we're short for cash, my dad'll help because he always sees that we're trying. My dad, well, I could say he's been our rock. When we're tired and exhausted, he'll step in and give us a break here and there, but he makes sure we have everything we need and keeps us motivated. Tiffany wants to apply to college soon, and I'm worried because I don't want to keep living with her. And I don't think I can keep our daughter full-time as a welder working 12-hour shifts. But she says she'll start at community college and work, but wants to stay with us living together since it's easier. Since I'll be working and it will be best for us to stay with my dad. But my dad said at 18 we have to pay rent. She doesn't mind, but I don't want to keep living with her because we aren't even together. I'm unsure how to tell her this. My dad thinks she should stay with us as long as she is a full-time student to finish her degree, because I'm already getting my career anyways. I don't know. I just feel like all this is unfair because the burden's on me. Okay guys, this story's starting to heat up. Let me just tell you, there's 3 mini updates on the original post, and then we're going to hop into the main update. I hope you guys are enjoying your day today. Here's the first edit made by OP. I guess my thing about living with her, or with us, is that we're more like siblings now. We get along, joke and stuff, but since she's my ex, I feel weird out about it. Maybe I need to take a breather since everyone's saying it's a good thing. Also, I needed to hear it from other people and not just my dad. And he's pretty solid, and I should thank him maybe, I don't know, take him to dinner or something. Edit number 2. Well, my dad isn't kicking us out at 18, but he wants us to be realistic to the world and pay bills. The money he gets from Tiffany's parents, he just gives it to her. She's saving up money for a car, and uses the other money for her specific foods and clothes. Before I became a dad, my dad always wanted me to live with him at 18, and figure it out and stay with him and save money to buy a house. When he found out I was going to be a dad, he wasn't mad, but he definitely was disappointed, and said everything has to now drastically change. He's also paying for my welding school of $20,000, and he did buy me my first car, but I do have to pay my own insurance, you know. He does help though, as long as he sees we're trying and not being straight up lazy. You know, like looking at TikTok all day, or Instagram Reels, or heck, even playing video games too much. When school recently started, he took my daughter to daycare every morning, and helped Tiffany with the routine to get schoolwork done. Here's the final edit before the main update. Well guys, I have to get to class now. Tiffany wants to be a nurse or a PA, but the college told her nursing school's hard to get into, and it's best to have a high school diploma, which is why she's still in high school and working at the weekends. But someone mentioned a dual thing for community college that we're going to look into. Thank you for that comment. So, we could not get daycare assistance because we're minors, and they just use my dad's salary. The funny thing is, though, I can't open a checking account for myself because I'm a minor, but the bank allowed me to open a children's account for my daughter because, well, I'm her parent. LOL, the irony. I read every single comment, and it's given me a different point of view, and I guess college seems so far away. And I was counting years, but it's really not that bad. By the way, she's like a sister now, and those who asked, I doubt we'll ever get back together. Honestly, I'm thinking about anything like that right now. I'm not. And I'm too tired to think of a relationship or anything like that type of future. but thank you for all the advice, comments, and replies. Okay, Mr. Reddito here. So it's been 3 long weeks, and OP finally lets us know what's going on. The title is, I'm a 16-year-old male. I have a 4-month-old daughter, and ex-girlfriend wants to go to college. Here we go. Hey guys, I know it's been like 15 or more days since I updated. Sorry about that, but here it goes. Tiffany and my dad went to the school and were able to get her enrolled in college courses because of her grades being so fantastic. She won't graduate high school too fast, but she'll have enough to finish high school hours by next December, so I guess you could say 6 months early. She reapplied for assistance and we got a voucher for daycare, so now it's $50 a week. She quit her job so she can focus on school, but she doesn't start school until spring, so that's cool, it gives her some time. She still wants to be a nurse, so that's cool too. I got a new job that pays more as a forklift operator, and it'll give me an internship for welding, which I won't be able to start until December, until I finish my classes, and then I have to do a 2-month internship. But hey, guys, they're paying me really good. I started Monday and I love the guys there. My dad and I had a long talk about my fears, and he just reassured me a couple things. That it's okay to be scared, but we have a game plan. He's fixing up the basement to make 2 bedrooms and a living room, like a little apartment, because he said Tiff and I will need space as we grow. He wants me to buy the house when I'm 18, like he did with his parents, and Hugh will help me pay it as long as Tiff gets to stay until she finishes college and lets her make her own choice after that. We all agreed this is probably the best option, and we're really much happier now. I guess I just needed to let it all out. Tiff and I are great while being parents is hard, but it's been good now that we feel a bit more secure. My mom and Tiff's parents still haven't spoken to us because we aren't married. It's been forever now, which does make me sad, but it's okay. We still have Dad. Tiff's grandparents bought her a car and said that's all they can do for her and to never contact again. Yeah, they're waiting for us to get married. The car needs some work, but I'm going to pay for it to get fixed up. It needs brakes, suspension, just some regular maintenance. Well, my dad finally told me what all happened, and I did not know, but it made my eyes open to the roof. My dad met my mom in high school too, and they were together and got caught kissing by the teacher. Since my mom's family are Baptist, they forced my dad to marry her. I didn't know in Missouri parents can marry away their children at 15, which is why my dad has been so protective. They were going to marry Tiff and I because she was pregnant, and when my dad stepped in, they couldn't do a thing. My mom and Tiff's dad went and got a license for us and were going to get married in a church with us. I guess I wouldn't have minded marrying Tiffany, but I would rather do it later. But yeah, that's why they aren't talking to us. My dad did say that it happened, he would help us get it annulled, but we have no intentions of speaking to them right now, so they have no way in our life. He explained that Tiff is stuck, and while I might be afraid, she's even more afraid because she has no one, and I need to reassure her we're here for her as a family. I guess I couldn't see it that way, and it's good that I've talked to him. I'm hugged by my dad, and I've been hugging him every day now, and it's nice. It's just made us so much closer. All of this information made me pretty sad and grateful at the same time, and it helped Tiff and I really start talking more. Like, we talked, but we didn't talk, and I didn't know she was scared. And we're now doing days for us to be kids, as my dad says. So we both hang out with our friends who still talk to us at least once a week. And Tiff and I, well, we do a lot of stuff now on the weekends, since she doesn't work as much. Like taking Jelly to the park and going for walks. We even did a pumpkin patch. Jelly seems to be happier too, and Tiffany doesn't seem as tired anymore, and I can see just the brightness in her eyes. Anyways, I just am so sorry for rambling about my life. Thanks everyone for all your help, tips, and encouragement. I doubt I'll update again. and just lurk for parenting advice. Okay guys, so that was kind of a wild story. Let's go ahead and read one of these comments that gives a perspective about the father and how much he actually did for them. Well, let me just say how much I think the dad is just absolutely great. Can't think of a better role model for how to parent. And just saying, he has matured quickly at a young age. By will or by circumstance doesn't matter. But the dad coming from a similar situation and treating Tiff with such respect, like she's his own child too, is just making his son consider how she feels without belittling that it's difficult for the son to do. What a rationale, healthy system they've developed for what could have been a single mistake that limited both the teenage parents' and daughter's opportunities in life. It's nice to see good non-drama and cheating gossipy stories for once. So guys, let me know your thoughts on this story. What would you have done? And how big of an impact did the father actually provide? Give me all the deets. Drop it in the comment section down below. You guys know what to do. And let's turn our attention to the final story of the day. OP's parents kidnapped her, held her hostage at their own home after a major car accident. So this is my first post ever. This might be a little long, but there's a lot of backstory, so sorry. I got divorced mid last year, 2020. I started dating my current boyfriend, who's an absolute sweetheart. We both have a medical background working as paramedics. When we first started talking, he exaggerated when he had been working at the ambulance company. Yes, it was kind of a lie, but what he said was he was still working there as a full-timer, when he was really on a volunteer status from some type. Kinda stupid, but not the end of the world, at least I don't think so. In January, my boyfriend had to go to the ER for some pretty nasty bleeding ulcers and was subsequently admitted. On my way home early that morning, I crashed my car, resulting in a crushed left foot, torn ligaments in the right knee, and a nasty concussion, and some bruised lungs. Somehow, my parents found out that he had exaggerated his employment with the ambulance company, and I think they may have blamed him for my car accident. I ended up being in the hospital for about a week, undergoing 2 surgeries for my foot, and finally being able to get discharged home. A lot of this time frame, I don't remember because of my concussion, but I do remember some snippets. I remember my boyfriend coming and visiting me, helping me bathe, get up, use the restroom, which is incredibly hard when both legs aren't working, and so on. Making sure I was comfortable and everything. My mom would come and visit me a couple days during this time period and started telling me that my boyfriend was lying to me about a lot of random stupid stuff, and started planting these lies in my head when she knew I was compromised mentally. My boyfriend and his 2 kids had been living with me and my daughter up until this point, and I initially wanted to come home to all of them for my healing process, which is still going on to 5 months later. My parents barged into my apartment and kicked him and his 2 daughters out of the apartment, telling my complex that I wanted them out, and I had specifically asked them to take care of it. By the way, I never did such a thing. Since we were in the process of adding my boyfriend and the girls to my lease, this ended up in a near eviction for me, and I had to go to my parents to rehab. A whole nother story for later, but it was no fun. My parents had me block my boyfriend, and I did not get the chance to see him again until nearly 3 weeks after I was released from the hospital. At which point I was able to talk to him and clear up all the lies that my parents told me that he had fed me. I realized that they had been the ones telling me all the lies. Okay, so now, my parents have actually been assisting my boyfriend's soon-to-be ex-wife. They've been in the process of divorce for over a year, and they were helping her get false protection orders against him, and trying to get his kids taken away. At first, I was wavering on who I stood behind, but my parents started coming to my apartment stalking me and my boyfriend, making threats against his life, and overall making it to the point where I don't feel safe in my own home because I just don't know when they're going to show up and demand me to hand over my daughter, threatening to go to my ex-husband and try to get my custody taken away, and so much more. I've since cut them out of my life, blocking their number from my phone and making sure they have no contact with my daughter. But I still feel terrible completely cutting them out. Am I doing the right thing? Someone, please, anyone, tell me, is this the right thing, or am I being a total jerk? Either way, sorry for the long thread. I tried to put as much context as possible, but I've never done this before. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. This story is kind of crazy because there wasn't an update for actually months. We're going to jump into that now. If you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button, as there's daily stories every single day and you don't want to miss any updates. Let's see what's going on with this entitled family. Wow. I'm a little overwhelmed with how fast this post exploded. Sorry it took so long for the update. I tried to keep up with as many comments as possible, but I figured this would just be easier to answer the questions thrown at me. But first off, I definitely understand those who are skeptical about my post. It's more than a little bizarre, and I'm probably not the best at describing some of the situations. But I seriously appreciate all the great advice that's been given. And I'm looking at some other options listed in the comments as well. That's what I'm already doing. I think the easiest part for me to clear up is the question about the insurance and my entitled mother getting me off the insurance I had with my boyfriend and putting me on the state insurance without me or my boyfriend's consent. As an adult, I can call in and cancel my coverage anytime with or without the policyholder's knowledge. There doesn't need to be a major life change in order to be taken off a policy. Usually, to get a new insurance coverage or add someone to the insurance. All my entitled mother needed was the insurance information and access to my information as well as his, which she had. She already had all my personal information, including my social security number and my insurance info. This is how she signed me up for insurance coverage through the state as well. As some of you speculated, I'm sure it had something to do with the financial control she could exert over me, as well as trying to totally get my boyfriend out of my life for good. But honestly, I'll probably never get the real answer to that. The reason why I did not get the hospital bill immediately is a pretty easy explanation. First off, my car insurance coverage included medical bill payments as well, up to a certain amount of money. At first, going through the billing process, the hospital, orthopedics, anesthesiologists, blah blah blah, had to send their bills through my car insurance first, and then through my health insurance. I'm not 100% sure how that all works exactly, but I do know it was a mess, and it took multiple tries to even explain to all the doctors what was already paid out, who got the money, and the next insurance to bill. As well as it took weeks for them and myself to realize that while I was in the hospital, the insurance I went in with got canceled mid-hospital stay. So, bills got sent out to the insurance I had at my boyfriend's, which was followed by confusion from the hospital, insurance companies, and of course myself, trying to figure out when it got cut off. My entitled mother did tell me eventually what she's done with my insurance and how she changed it, but by that point, it was too late. I was already scrambling to try to rectify the situation and get as much covered from the hospital stay as possible. Even doing that, I still owe them nearly $50,000 in medical bills. For those who had questions about how I'd gotten on his insurance in the first place when he started the job, well, he had the insurance from which he had qualified as domestic partners because of how long we've been living together and how long the relationships lasted. For everyone wondering if we went to the police or filed charges or anything along those lines, it's a very long story, but yes, we are. I have a very good lawyer who actually represents myself and my boyfriend. It took me a while after I got home to my apartment to get to the point where I could cut contact with Entitled Mother. When I finally got home, I tried to start seeing my boyfriend again, and we started the long process of trying to, quote, heal from what happened since Entitled Mother had essentially kicked him and his 2 kids out of my apartment in the middle of winter. They honestly just straight up had nowhere to go. The kids ended up staying with friends for a while, and he stayed in his car and rented a hotel room when possible. I wasn't fully aware of what exactly was going on at the time, as Entitled Mother had my cell phone and access to my phone, and while I was at her home, she watched me like a hawk. And to make sure that I simply just did not contact him. If I did, oh boy, I got berated like you absolutely could not believe, screamed at, and at one point did not have access to my phone, which was all very confusing because I was on very heavy-duty pain medicine, as well as having confusion from the TBI concussion as well. After I made it to my apartment and started to have more contact with my boyfriend, my Entitled Mother escalated. Staying at my apartment, even though I told her I was fine, showing up randomly, and even actually getting so angry that I refused to cut contact with my boyfriend, that she threatened to actually hurt him. That was when I grew a slight backbone and decided that it just wasn't going to get any better. At that point, I filed for a protection as well as my boyfriend, who copied my paperwork. When the first protection orders got dropped because, quote, we didn't have sufficient evidence, she had gotten a lawyer at this point, but we did not because we couldn't pay her for the retainer. And this was before I've gotten smart enough to install cameras or call recorders on my phone. My Entitled Mother went to the city's prosecutor's office and told them that she wanted to press charges of perjury against my boyfriend. Yeah, you got that right. I said perjury. Well, I think this is where the friendship with the prosecutor started, and it was very hard for us to get anything to stick, because Entitled Mother was getting in with the local PD and prosecutors. Yeah, it's getting that bad. They ended up going after my boyfriend and not me. Yes, that's selective prosecution. Yes, it's very illegal. At this same time, my mother and father are retired, by the way, and apparently have nothing better to do with themselves. And they've been in contact with my boyfriend's ex-wife, who starts a custody battle for his children. They'd been separated for some time, but the divorce had been stalled in court for several years at this point. They also filed in small claims court for lawyer and court fees after our first protection order was removed. My ex-husband had been allowing my daughter to see both of my parents still, which I did fight and which has probably spurred the grandparent right visitation case that they filed during the same time. So, we've been fighting one thing at a time, collecting all the evidence that we can, all the hospital paperwork, especially those that were forged and had to be requested from the hospital again. The phone calls to the insurance company needed to be requested, and we needed our lawyer to get those. It wasn't something that they were just going to give us, unfortunately. At this point, we have wadded through almost all the court filings my Entitled Mother had thrown at us, and we're finishing gathering our evidence so we can counterattack at this point. At the time, our lawyer was telling us to be patient. We're going to lay low, gather as much as we can, and get through the thick of it. We can throw what we have in the system, but we needed and wanted to have enough to nail them to the wall. From here, there will be a counter lawsuit, both jointly between myself and my boyfriend, and of course separate lawsuits as well as submitting what we have for identity theft. Well, guys, it's a very long process, and it takes a lot of time, effort, and money to get things moving. For those of you wondering if me and my boyfriend got back together and how that's going, oh yes, we did. We did get back together. It didn't take long for me to start realizing what was happening when I wasn't being given heavy narcotics, and my brain started the healing process from the wreck. It did, though, take some time for me to wade through everything that happened and try to recall memories here and there. We did get back together, found a new place, and moved in together with his 2 children and my daughter. We've had some hard times, of course, like many people in life, but we're both a little damaged from the whole process that we've gone through. But hey, we both have counseling and we're doing great. Therapy has worked absolute wonders. Well, guys, I hope this helps explain and expand on questions everyone's been asking in the comment section. Thank you, everybody, for the advice, and I hope you enjoyed this update. Guys, reading through the comment section on this story was absurd. There's so many people who have been in a similar situation like this. Tons of people giving their side and their story, what they've been through. So that leaves me with this. If you guys have been through anything like this story, drop your comments down below and tell me all about it. Today's story is crazy. It's about an abuse of power, and you will not believe who the heck was abusing their power. Don't ever be in a hurry in life. The progress of someone should not make you feel stagnated, to the point whereby you then make decisions out of pressure. I'm the second girl among the 4 daughters which my parents gave birth to. My father owned a salon downtown while my mother worked at a liquor store. We're not rich, but nobody could intimidate us. Among the 4 daughters which my parents had, I was the only one who went to high school. Going to college was never really an option for me, for obvious reasons. No money. The 4 of us were all made to learn a trade or get a job to help out in the house. My father had learned to survive on his own, and he was teaching us to do the same. My sisters began getting married at some point, and though I've never really seemed disturbed, it became a thing of concern when even my younger sisters both got married, and I was left in my father's house. To make matters worse, I was not even in a serious relationship. Neither was there someone who was interested in me at the time. The few people who had dealings with me in the past left a while after they slept with me. There was no real reason as to why I was yet to be in a committed relationship. It wasn't my fault in any way, it was just the way it was. I guessed that when the time was right, I would find my own man, get married. That was just the wishful thinking because the time never got right for me. I just kept living in my parents' house while my sister was comfortably staying with their husbands. My parents never made me uncomfortable, but I felt uneasy. I began seeing myself as a form of disappointment and all. The pain would grow worse when either of my sisters visit us with their husbands or children. I would act like I was overjoyed to have them around, but I cried my eyes out when they left. It's not like they rubbed it in my face or anything. No, my sisters aren't like that. In fact, they've previously tried their best to set me up with some guys, in the hope that I could result in something really good. But it never did. I was what people would call wife material. It's a term that meant that a lady was the complete package, which a guy would ever need in a wife. It meant that she could cook, take care of her man, her home, bring some things to the table, and still respect her husband regardless. Yeah, I was a wife material without a husband. I soon became desperate, and my desperation turned against me. I was anxiously waiting for the first man to propose. I'd not require anything of what I needed him to look or have. My only requirement was that he should just be a man. Yeah, I was that desperate. The first man who picked interest in getting married to me was Pete, a policeman. Even though he tried severely hard to sleep with me before marriage, sex is off the table. I was not willing to go the same route that would see me ending up single after a while. I made up my mind to keep sex pending till after marriage, celibacy. I did my best, though, to try keeping his interest in me alive. I would visit him twice a week, cook for him, and do his laundry. I spent part of the little money which I earned working 2 jobs on him. Each time we discussed, I would try directing our conversations towards marriage. But he acted like he didn't pick up with my clue. After a while, I became frustrated and had to outrightly ask him what his plans for me were, because I was not going to spend my life acting like his wife when he was yet to make me one. That's when he decided to come see my parents and declare his intention to get married. My parents were not in support of me getting married to Pete. They said he was a cop, and cops were criminals in this part of the country where we stayed. They even told my other sister, who shared the same notion. I understood that they meant the most of the cops in our town were corrupt, but I felt that it was wrong to generalize every cop as corrupt. I was desperate, and in my desperation, I ignored all their advice. I just needed to get married and get out of my parents' house. If only I knew what the best days to remain single rather than getting married to this wrong person. Well, Pete and I got married, and that's when the problem began. It was true that I'd become a married lady who lived in her husband's house, but I was far from living my best life. Desperation had cleared out my eyes, and from the first week of our marriage, I realized that I've made a serious mistake. But rather than opt out, I decided to manage things because it's just too early. I was trying to avoid the fact that my people may have been right when they said that every cop, including Pete, would make a terrible husband. Everything was just bad in the home. Pete was not a good lover, not a good husband. He did not have the faintest idea of how a husband should treat a wife. He simply didn't care. He kept late nights, would often sleep outside because of his, quote, job, and I knew his job was just a facade to continue sleeping around. I never confronted him, though. I focused on being good and a submissive wife, as my mother was to my father. But it was really difficult turning a blind eye to something that glared at you, especially when every other person saw and pointed it out. I gave birth to our son within the first year of our marriage, and I resumed work when I was strong enough. The birth of our son did not bring some sense into my husband. As a matter of fact, he grew worse. He became a policeman both at work and at home. He monitored my every step and would become jealous when he found a guy talking to me. I guess that was him being afraid that I was trying to do to him what he's been doing to me all along. It was not long, and soon he began accusing me of sleeping with the whole neighborhood. I was taken aback by his accusations because I've been faithful in our marriage from the very first day. It's just hypocritical for him to accuse me of cheating when news of his escapades with women were flying around town faster than the newspaper. And, well, he refused being discreet about it. I denied the accusations and then made mine. I told him things which he never expected to hear. They were not insults. No, they were simply the truth that I harshly expressed. He reacted as though he was in a war front. That was the first time that he hit me. Yeah, he hit me. All because I told him the truth. What a silly excuse he was for a man. I'm pretty sure that if it were some robbers wanting to engage in a gunfight with him, he would have shamelessly hid it away. But of course not, since it's because I'm just his little defenseless wife, a woman. He hit me hard. I was fed up. I was not going to sit around and take any more of his stupidity. I waited for him to leave for work before leaving with our son. It was from my father's house that I filed for a divorce. He did not seem disturbed by me leaving. He was only interested in custody of his son. Well, the judge ruled that I take custody, and he was to pay child support. If I had it my way, though, I would not even want to train my child with his money, which was most certainly gotten from extorting individuals. Things were quiet with me and my son for some time, but my ex-husband Pete soon started showing up unannounced at my place to ask me to hand over the custody of our son to him. Well, obviously, I ignore him. His visits become more frequent, and he would sometimes come to me at odd places like the grocery store. It was more like he was stalking me. He was making threats, which soon began getting to me. I kept it to myself for a while, but it got to the point where one could not keep quiet anymore. I had to speak to my parents about it. My father was not taking any of that nonsense. He already had disdain for police, and more especially a cop who had maltreated his daughter. Well, he traced Pete down to his home and warned him to stay clear of me. I've never seen him like this. My son and our entire family, he said. Pete became furious and a heated argument ensued, which saw my father almost fight him, if not for the fact that people intervened. My father came back home that night and relayed all that's happened to me and my mom. I knew Pete was not going to let the matter be, but I never expected what I saw coming. We're awoken by the sound of a siren blaring into our compound the very next morning. Pete came with some of his colleagues and arrested my father for assaulting a police officer. It wasn't funny at all. My father never assaulted him. My father had not laid a finger on him, in fact. All my father did was what any other reasonable parent was going to do. My ex-husband, who accused my father of assault, was actually the one who assaulted someone. Me. He was literally arresting my father for a crime which he, the officer, committed. My mom and I rushed down to the police station to rectify the situation, but it was of no avail. The system was just corrupt, and there was really nothing we could do there. I was left with no other option than to visit Pete in his house and plead with him to let my father go. Well, my plea fell on deaf ears. He only agreed to let my father go if I gave up custody of our child. He gloated by saying that he could send my father away for the rest of his life, and none of us would be able to do a thing about it. So, I left my ex-husband's house that day with a clue of what to do. If I had my way, I would have done the very thing in my head was telling me to do, and that was to kill him. I was going to off my ex-husband without remorse. But though my head wanted it, my hand could not execute the plan. I didn't have the means. One thing was certain, though. We had to act fast before my father was taken to court, and the sentence was passed. It got to the point that we had lost my dad for good. My mom was not really herself for the next few days. Her blood pressure rose, and my older sister had to take her over to her home so that she could be distracted by her grandchildren. I felt bad and guilty because I'd brought it on to my family. If I'd only listened to them and not gotten married to Pete, then this whole drama would not have played out. My father was being held up in a cell because I was too desperate to reason. He was suffering because he tried defending his daughter who did not listen to him. The next few days that followed Pete calling me to ask what my decision was. He was just happy watching me in distress, and he made the most out of it. He would go on talking over the phone and that he could make the whole thing go away as easily as he made it appear, and all I had to do was give up custody of our son. Then it dawned on me that I could actually save my father and keep my son. My ex-husband had been gloating about being responsible for making the whole thing appear. If only I could get him to admit orchestrating the whole thing in front of a judge. I called Pete to arrange a meeting with him where I would give him my verdict. Pete and I both met at his place, and I asked him if he was sure that he could end what he had started. I was very careful about my choice of words because I needed to entrap him. He soon admitted that he hadn't used the situation to his advantage because he needed custody of our son. But if I complied, then my father would be discharged before the end of the day. I agreed to his demand by telling him that I was going to meet with the lawyer to put an agreement paper thereby giving up custody to my son. I could see the satisfaction that covered Pete's face as he felt that he had successfully bullied our child out of my hands. Unknown to him, I had recorded our discussion and I was going to use it against him. I met with my lawyer, but it was not to sign any custody agreement. It was to slam my ex-husband with a lawsuit for abuse of power and the unlawful arrest against my father. My ex-husband called to threaten me as soon as he was served the court papers. He threatened to make sure we never saw our father again. His threat was nothing new, so it didn't really bother us much. What he did not know was that I had substantial evidence to put him away for good. If only he knew what was coming his way, he would have ran out of town. The next time that I met face-to-face with my ex-husband was in court. Within a short while after the case began, the recording of our discussion was presented before the judge. My ex-husband grew cold as the whole court heard him and admit falsely accusing my father, wrongly arresting him and trying to blackmail me into giving up custody of our son. The case was a very swift one. My ex-husband was sentenced to 25 years in prison with hard labor, while he would still be investigated for corruption among the police force, and if found guilty, he would have an extended prison time. His little property, which he'd gotten through extortion and other illegitimate means, would be forfeited to the government, who would pay me my little percentage of it. The judge ordered the immediate release of my father, who was still compensated with $10,000. 2 months later, I paid a visit to my ex-husband, Pete. Pete was in prison. It was not to wish him well. Au contraire. I wanted to let him know that I was going to make sure the child we shared took on my name, and he would never be a part of his life. I was surprised at how he transformed within 2 minutes of being in prison. He was battered and broken by some prison inmates whom had sent there. That served him right. He was getting all what he deserved, and upon investigation, some other corrupt officers that worked closely with my ex-husband were uncovered, and they were equally taken off the force. I got paid 5% of the loot, which my ex-husband gotten, even though it mattered little to me. I went on to get a job and managed a hotel. Well, it's been 2 years ever since, and even though my life has not been the best, it has been peaceful at least. I'm not in a hurry to get married, even though I'm currently seeing someone. A divorcee with a son, too. I've come to realize that no matter what anyone has, or the position that they might be in, never let it be a yardstick to measure your own success story. I had let the pressure coming from the fact that my sisters had all gotten married push me into a wrong marriage, and I paid the ultimate cost. I only hope my kids will be able to learn from all my mistakes. So this story was absolutely devastating. I noticed that this story did not take place in America. It said in the comments it was in a Latin American country. I only have one thought about that. How many places in the world does something like this happen so often, where a cop's basically able to bribe people or use his power? I know it happens all over the world, but let me know if you guys know of any exact scenarios, because to be honest, I was starting to think this story was fake, but the more comments I was reading, this kind of thing happens all the time apparently. So guys, let me know your thoughts about this. Do you think justice was served and the police officer got the karma that he must needed? Drop your comments down below, and let's take a second to announce that I have started my new Instagram channel. If you aren't following it yet, I do have daily reels, Instagram green screens, and all sorts of behind the scenes stuff. You can find that directly below in the description section, along with my other 2 YouTube accounts. Check those out, guys. Have a wonderful day, and Mr. Reddito will catch you on the next one.